Hello, welcome to another episode of The High Ground, powered by Premier Companies. Jeff, how are you this morning?
I'm wonderful. Sal, yourself?
Doing great, doing great.
Yeah, who you got for us today?
We have a returning guest, Senior Vice President Scott Sharp. Welcome to the podcast room.
Good morning.
Welcome back.
Thanks for inviting me back.
That's right. Well, we got the question of the day first. We're experiencing some real winter weather in southern Indiana. And we had a 15 to 20 inches probably. I don't know how much we ended up with across the territory. But we got snow removal going on. So what's do you have a funny or frustrating snow removal story that you can share with us?
As a matter of fact, I do. A couple of years ago, I bought me a little subcompact tractor. I'm going to move snow, and it does really good on the flat ground, not so much on the hill. Spent about 20, 30 minutes digging it out after it got stuck. And so then, as you're aware, Sal, I bought some tire chains for it. So Sal came up and inspected them to make sure I weren't going to tear anything up. So
They look good.
I'll get home tonight. I'll see if I can make it up and down my hill. So that was certainly frustrating. But fortunately, Premier does buy us nice vehicles. So we got a 4-wheel drive truck. So I made it work. I do have a funny story, though, but it's not recent. I was in college and we got a big snow and decided, hey, we're going to make a snowman. Why 19-year-old kids were doing that? You were too old for that. But anyway, we did. And so then we got the bright idea that we'd go kick the bottom of the snowman and see how far we could, plant your foot in there. Unknowns to me, there was an ice chunk about that big around right in the middle of it. And so, yeah, it hurt. And finals are going on, right? It's snowing. And so I go walk into the finals and I can't hardly walk anymore. And I just stopped and I look and there's the infirmary. So one of the 3 bones I've broke there.
Oh, my God.
In my life.
So you don't kickbox with snowmen anymore?
No, I do not. Snowman 1 sharp 0.
And you kicked the base of it. So that was the biggest.
Oh, yeah. I thought it'd be nice and soft and not so much.
Jeff, what's your
snow
story?
We did. We got a big snow. Got the tractor fired up, cleaned out the driveway, and I'm pretty proud of it. I've got my driveway clean as a whistle. Of course, the next day, you know what happens? The county road grader comes through.
Yeah.
And I'm watching him come down the road. Sure enough, just plows into my driveway. And I knew it was going to happen. Well, the good news is this guy makes about 3 laps up and down our road, does a great job. On his last lap, he literally stopped at the end of my driveway, kind of pulled in, used his blade on that road grader, and cleaned out the end of my driveway, then went on. I'm like, that's a solid operator right there.
That is.
Oh, shoot.
Well, mine was, other than the fact that the first shovelful I took, I was like, my gosh, this is heavy. And it was just a heavy snow. But Kim, my wife and my mother-in-law, in front of the mailbox down at the barn dominium where my mother-in-law stays, I'm sure she doesn't listen to the podcast, but they put a half-barrel flour barrel, like those 55-gallon drums or 50-gallon, the wooden ones, in front of the mailbox. And I'm like, you can't put that there. I mean, the mail lady has to reach over that. And I was like, somebody's going to hit it. And well, it survived all summer. And I'm like, well, now finally the snow happened and the snow plow's going to come along and just poof. And they didn't. They went around it. And so finally I got out there with my backhoe and I hit it. So
you're the one person that knew it was there.
I know.
That's funny.
So it may have been, I may have been trying to get a little bit too close, but anyway, they'll never know, but it's in the ditch. I'll have to dig it out now. But that's my snow story and I'm sticking to it.
There you go.
So one of the many responsibilities of the two in the room between Jeff and Scott is they buy and find and source all the fertilizer for the company. And just going to talk a little bit today about the big picture and fertilizer markets. And I'm going to hand it off to Jeff and to Scott. And I guess we can start in and say what's some of the dynamics around the fertilizer industry right now.
Scott, can you talk about all the fun we've had the last 2 years trying to navigate these markets?
It's been challenging. It's kind of like you think the longer you do something, the easier it gets, and it doesn't. I mean, it actually, I think, gets harder because when you start, you don't realize that there's all these other factors you just don't know about them, right? And then you start second guessing and go, yeah. And then the other thing is instantaneous knowledge of everything.
Oh yeah, it's live.
Yeah, I mean, it used to be. I mean, if you wanted to know what was going on in Europe or Soviet Union, you had to wait and watch news, Walter Cronkite on Sunday night, whatever it is. Well, heck, in 10 minutes now.
Well, it used to, we call them black swan events that happen. And in the old days, you would hear about them, but it's like, well, that might impact us for next fall. Now you hear about it same day, and the markets start reacting and trading based on that happening. It's instantaneous.
Yes.
And so that's been tough. You talk about when you first start, you don't know anything. Well, then you start to kind of learn the fundamentals. Well, when this happens, it causes this reaction, and you start to learn those fundamentals, and you kind of base your buying decisions on them. Well, the last 2 years, you can take a lot of the fundamentals and throw them out.
Yes.
Because it's been reacting differently. So that's been a challenge.
Would agree.
We had Josh Linville in last summer or this past summer, and one of the things that he had a lot, but it could boil down to just how chaotic the world was. Between Russia and Ukraine, and it just seemed like everything, and the pinch points where all the fertilizer has to come through, and he summed it up as saying everybody just needs to get along a little better, right? But how it just seems, from my perspective, just a novice, with the tariffs and all the other discussions. I mean, how's that impacting prices now? I mean, with the tariff coming on or going off with Canada, I guess, is that a big factor at the moment, and for what?
It's for the most part, a lot of the tariffs of some of the ag products have been what's the word I'm trying
Exempted.
to exempt, yeah. So there's a lot of exemptions out there on some of the tariffs, but they still impact the overall trade, and so we've had to navigate those things. I guess my personal opinion is I think there's some things that need to be fixed in how our country trades with other countries, and we kind of knew that there would be some short-term indigestion caused for ag, and we've felt that. But I think it's probably bigger than tariffs. I think there's been other things that have disrupted our supply, even probably bigger than the tariffs. Whether we're talking, duties being placed on phosphates, so the anti-dumping duties, or the Russian-Ukraine war. That's probably had a bigger impact.
Most certainly.
Would you say?
And the thing about, and I think, again, for the novice, they kind of put duties or, countervailing duties and tariffs kind of in the same bucket, and they're very different.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, tariffs, they're negotiating points, right? I mean, they come and go. I mean, and at least the current administration, there may be tariffs to, get announced today, and they may be off by Monday. Duties, they're there. I mean, it's
usually 5 years, and then
yes.
there's a sunset review, and then it's once they go on, they're hard to get off.
Yeah, I mean, just because they sunset doesn't mean that they disappear, and it's like they kind of just it gets moved on, and they just kind of get left there almost. It seems like, and so those types of things that are more long lasting are certainly more painful or impacting.
And they put an end date on duties or a review date whenever those are set.
Yeah, they review them every year, but when they put the phosphate duties went on 5 years ago. So I think this April is the sunset review hearing for that, and we'll find out, will there be some changes made? Will they go away? Will they reduce them? Will they leave them on? So, but I think we've got enough talk about the phosphate markets and how that's impacted us over the last 5 years. We've seen just record high prices on phosphates. I'm hoping we get some relief. Now, if they say, hey, we're going to take the duties off, that will help. But you got to remember that when you tell countries they can't come here because of duties, they're still producing phosphates, and they've adjusted their trade flows. So there's customers out there buying their product. And just because we say, hey, we'll take the duties off, They're not going to say, well, let's just cut the price and ship you all you want then. No, they're going to factor us into their supply plan. And if they have enough to supply us, they'll bring some here, but it's not like you're going to flip a switch and price goes down $200 overnight. It'll take some time for those trade flows to readjust.
I mean, and it goes both directions, right?
Yes.
I mean, it took a while for the trade flows to adjust so that we could get some product into the United States and ample supplies and price ration some of that demand. Well, if it takes a year or two for that to happen, it's going to take a year or two for it to go back the way it was. And, that's if everybody's still not butthurt over it and says, heck with it. I mean, if it's a wash, I'm going where I was going, right? And why fire a current customer that didn't do that to you type of thing?
Yeah, absolutely.
Scott, on the demand side, I mean, how hard is it? You talk about the different variables and things you have to consider, and is now with the ag economy like it is and the commodity pricing. I mean, how hard is the forecasting of what the demand will be? I guess, or whether will end users will they use as much, and how do you figure that in?
Poorly.
I was like, I really want to hear this answer. I need an answer to this.
I'll stick with poorly. It's difficult, right? And I mean, we're a supply co-op for our ag customers and our owners, and so you want to have product when they need it, and but at the same time, you don't want to have a lot left over on years like this, and so they're slow to make decisions, and I'm not bashing them for that. I would do the same thing if I was in their shoes. And we saw demand destruction last year when we had phosphates where they were. Not so much potash, but so all right. So we were down 10%, let's say, and it's roughly in that area. And then we were down again about 15% this fall. And so, was it? And really, it's rate per acre. It's not last year. In the spring, we certainly had acres that didn't get done, and that was part of our decline in sales. All fall, we did the same amount of acres. We just sold less tons, and it's just very difficult to manage. And on paper, we got a lot of fertilizer to buy if you look at historical volumes, but we also have a lot of length on the tons we already own, and so. We've had a bump in the soybean market here the last few days, so but that can influence how much nitrogen we need too, right? Yeah. And we need as much intel from the farmer to our account managers, and then back to Jeff and I as we can get to help do that.
Yeah, I think the best thing a farmer could do is just sit down and have that conversation with their account rep for Premier and just say, hey, here's what I'm thinking, and maybe maybe the reason they haven't done that, maybe this is one of those years like, hey, I've been looking at my taxes. I don't need to prepay this year, so maybe they're just not having that conversation because they didn't have to, write a prepaid check and do that planning ahead of time. But the longer they put that off, we can do a lot of things, but sourcing product last minute for just in time inventory is tough to do when we're relying on vessels getting to New Orleans and unloading to a barge and coming up a river system that is either choked with ice or low water or whatever. It just, the transit times, takes a good long while to get it here. So the sooner we know about what you're going to need and we can plan for it, we'll have the product in place.
And there's another layer. Another layer of that. Terminals are the same way.
Absolutely.
So they're not bringing those vessels up because they're sitting on positions just like what we described. And we need those conversations to the extent they can happen, and it's help us help you. Right.
We see things right now with this cold snap. We've got some nitrogen plants that have shut down. They've diverted that natural gas for home heat. And, so that takes production out. And if you shut a nitrogen plant down and you start producing less, and then say it warms up, we don't need as much for the home heat market, that natural gas comes back. But you don't just flip a switch and start running that nitrogen plant at full capacity. It takes time to bring it back up. On the anhydrous ammonia front, you have industrial customers. They pull anhydrous ammonia every week 52 weeks a year. So we have to compete against them. So when those production plants go down and we reduce the amount of available ammonia in the market, when it comes time for spring and we start, hey, we need it, we're competing against the industrial market to make sure that there's enough gas there. And it's not just what's produced here in the US. There's a lot of imports of nitrogen into this country. Well, there's things going on around the world. We've got some Caribbean countries that produce nitrogen. Well, they've had some natural gas issues. They've not been producing. So those are close tons that could get imported here that aren't coming. So again, it's just there's a lot of things we have to watch and plan. And like Scott said, we also don't want to sit there and say, hey, we needed this much last year. We'll just get the exact same amount. Well, bean market's up. We switch a bunch of acres to beans, and we carry over a bunch of nitrogen inventory. We're tying up, capital. There's a cost to that. So we try to have what they need when they need it, and we don't want to carry over a bunch of inventory because that hurts our member owners as well when we have added costs that we didn't need. So there's a lot that goes into it.
Certainly.
Well, it sounds like forecasting and communications it's a big part of it.
It is. It is.
What you mentioned natural gas. What impact does that have? The relationship and with nitrogen. I mean, how does it generally follow the natural gas price or availability?
It depends on what's convenient for the manufacturer.
I mean,
when supply's tight, yes. That forces price up. When it's plentiful,
Not so much.
And really, if we track natural gas in the U.S. on the Henry Hub, and if you look at that, it's a flat line for years. So natural gas price doesn't really impact nitrogen here. Our nitrogen prices actually track the European version of the Henry Hub, which I can't blank on the name of that right now.
Right.
But if you look at the European natural gas market, that's what our nitrogen actually tracks with. Now, these guys, the nitrogen plants in the U.S., they've got their analysts and they've got their traders, they've got their gas locked up. They know what they've got. But what it is that when that cold weather hits, and they will sell that natural gas off because it's worth so much more for home heat than it is for nitrogen production. So it makes sense. You want to heat homes. You don't want people going cold. But so that probably impacts us more here. Then you've got nitrogen plants. They can't just run them all the time. Every year they have to take them down and do repairs and maintenance. Again, those turnarounds are 30 to 40 days. Well, you get a plant, cranking out 1 million tons of ammonia, and you take 30 or 40 days out of that. That's a lot of tons that go away. And we've got 2 of those turnarounds scheduled to come into play this spring. So that's kind of compounding all the issues and why we see some of the high prices in nitrogen right now. And there's a lot of questions out there. And when it's questioned, what that demand is going to be and stuff, people start pulling back and maybe not playing like they normally do. And then when everybody says, hey, we're getting farther along the calendar, let's start buying some nitrogen, we see those prices spike up. And that's where we're at right now.
Is there any more production coming online, either in nitrogen, phosphorus, or potassium in the world, or is this kind of what we have?
Yeah, on the phosphate front, the Moroccans, they have extra production. They have more production coming online currently and over the next couple of years than what we even produce in this country. So the product will be there, but we have to fix some things with the duties to make sure we can get that product flowing to the U.S.
Boy,
and there's nitrogen plants, coming on all the time. And when new ones come on, there's also going to be some inefficient plants that either have to be upgraded or they may go away. I think we're probably settled down to the probably just upgrading some plants now. I don't see anything going away.
Right. And because again, the world only consumes X, right? Whatever that X is. And so just because we produce more, they're not going to spend tens or hundreds of billions of dollars building this new nitrogen plant to oversupply and just drop the price. That model doesn't work. Right?
I think the other thing too is, we can produce nitrogen about as cheap as anybody in the world right here in the U.S. But those companies that produce that also have opportunities to export those tons. So that's the other thing. If we're not having those planning sessions and forecasting what we need here, if they don't have an order on the book to keep it here, and they can make an extra $50 by shipping it across the ocean, guess what? They're gonna export it. So we also have to indicate what we need, so they'll keep the tons here, and we got to, which means we're going to compete against that global market.
It's like you said, the penalty for getting it wrong is it exists. I mean, if you uh, fill in what you did last year and we have leftover inventory, there's a cost to that.
And these nitrogen companies, especially the publicly traded ones, they're not going to produce a bunch of, oh, well, the U.S. farmer didn't need it, we'll just carry over the inventory, because that kills their stock price. So they're going to manage that thing to have acceptable inventory levels. They're not going to just produce it for the fun of it and hope that somebody buys it.
And I think the other thing is you said the penalty's more painful today than it was 20 years ago. Yeah. And that's due to the elevation in price. 25 years ago, you couldn't lose $200 a ton on UAN because it didn't cost that much, right? And it wasn't going to zero. Today, that can happen. And it can happen quick. I mean, in a matter of weeks.
So if you had to give a grower an advice today, would it be communicate what your needs are and make sure that your supplier, Premier Ag, knows what that is?
Yeah, sit down and know what you can sell on your grain, and then plan for what you're gonna grow, and have that conversation, and let's what is the best thing for your farm, or really probably down to the field.
Right.
What's best for this farm field, and then roll that plan up and come back and say, hey, I'm gonna need X. Great, we'll have it here.
So there's going to be makes sense that or it seems like there'd be a tail on this, because the crop doesn't care. It's going to remove what it does. And
Correct.
whether or not you put it on, it's going to remove that. And if we mine the soil and don't do at least removal applications, it's got to be replaced sometime.
But, I've talked with this with several of our account managers over the years. I mean, let's say, Sal, your farm's got good fertility and you decide hey, I'm going to forego this. It's not economical. And that first year, you're good, right? You've got good fertility. And what happens is, when prices are low, and you're making a profit. Well, as you continue to deplete that soil. All right, so now all of a sudden you got to start putting them back. Well, that's not an immediate response. And so if they're not careful, what happens is when, output prices, meaning corn, soybeans, when those prices rebound, then now all of a sudden we've got this lag in yield, and all of a sudden that same grower is not participating in, the better times that somebody that didn't skip for at least put removal on is experiencing, and that's painful as well.
All right.
Yeah, one other thing I would add on, I think the liquid nitrogen market is probably one that we really need to keep an eye on. We saw demand come in late last year. Supply was extremely tight. We did not run out, but we did some
unnatural things.
Yeah, so did unnatural things to make sure we didn't run out. And we also, I saw customers that paid $100 a ton more for 28% than what they would have had to if they'd have made that buying decision back in December or January, or at least booked it. Even if you didn't write the check for it, book it. Because like I said, once everybody starts scrambling with that just-in-time inventory in May, supply and demand kicks in. And if the supply is low, demand's high, those prices are going to skyrocket, and they will jump. And we saw a difference of over $100 from winter to spring.
And when you've got tight, and we got tight supplies of UAN today.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a lot of folks didn't get to buy all their summer fill, right?
Right.
There wasn't Q4 offers or, Ogno tons available a lot. And because of, it's a global market, sometimes it's like Jeff and I are crying wolf, because you'll see a softening of that price, say now, because they're just looking for tanks to put something, right? So keep that production going. And I think sometimes farmers will get a soft sense of reality that, oh, the market's slipping, I'm going to wait. Well, no, it's just in a lull, because it's getting ready to turn tail and go the other direction. And because we have, our tanks are full. We haven't lined up. I mean, when Jeffersonville, Owensboro, we haven't lined up toes coming in there because we don't have a place to put them. And now we got to plant corn for that to happen. And I'm not, I'm not saying the sky's falling, but there's a very good chance UAN could have a run up this spring, just like it did last year. May not if we cut corn acres and the soybean market keeps moving, but be cognizant that just because we're in a little dip doesn't mean that that's the trend.
That's the thing that we lose sleep over right now is what we're going to do on the liquid side.
That's a lot. All right. Anything else to add to all that? Because that's plenty.
No, we'd like to have one of these when we could tell you, hey, prices are low, supply is plentiful, and
Egg drop prices are
$6.
Yeah.
Amen.
Well, maybe we'll have one next year.
There we go. There we go.
All right. Well, that's all we have today. That's another episode of The High Ground powered by Premier Companies. Thank you all very much.